The dropout blamed on Spain's electricity grid. Both countries are working to restore power.
What a huge challenge it was.
Delayed play at the Madrid Open. Empty courts at the annual clay tournament when scoreboards and match cameras lost power.
And it's interesting hearing from Spanish officials here, and that's because the Portuguese energy system is so intrinsically tied to what happens in Spain.
We want to understand what has happened. We want to adopt the measures so as to ensure that this does not happen again.
Well, while all that was going on, we had friends in Spain. Many of you may know that we've got a house in Spain, and we invited two of our bestest friends, Derek and Claire, to spend a week with us. And what a fabulous week it was. So this fateful day, Sarah, where did it all start?
Well, it all started with us driving to Alicante.
Which turned out to be a very, very good idea.
Yes.
We got to Alicante. What happened?
We parked in the marina section, had a little view of that first, and then found a really lovely breakfast spot, because by then it was brunch. So you did really well with that.
Yeah, if any of you ever come to visit Sarah and I in Spain, we'll probably take you to that breakfast spot. And then after the breakfast, yeah, it's gorgeous. And after that breakfast spot, we took a trip up to the Santa Barbara Castle.
Yep.
Now, got to tell you, this was not what we planned for this video this week. So there was we don't have any footage. There's a little bit of footage a bit later on, but we weren't out for the day taking video. We were out with friends, just enjoying ourselves.
We don't like to film when we've got friends, especially on their vacation. It's not
ruin
right
their
to do
day.
that.
No. So we have got some photographs that will intersperse in here, and there is a bit of footage every once in a while.
I took a really good photograph, by the way. Another one, so we're going to have to put that in.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a weekly thing, Sarah's photograph.
Yeah. That's two photographs in the last month Sarah's taken,
Brilliant.
Which were very good. But we got up to the castle. Wonderful place to visit. It was a free day out, effectively. Absolutely gorgeous day, as you can see. Beautiful sunshine. And then we started the long journey down. I think going up there from sea levels about 42 flights of stairs.
Yeah,
wow.
Which obviously it's not all stairs going up. And we took time going up there, but it's definitely steep. And when you get to the top, it's a
but we took that route down again. And this is the first stage where our day went a bit odd. So we got probably 100 yards, I'd say, from the seafront, and we were just coming down and we saw a manhole where water was gushing out of this manhole, coming down.
Heard the water rushing down the street, and it reminded me, sadly, of the films we've been watching with the bad weather over the winter.
Yeah, that's right.
Pouring down the street.
And Derek said to me, Neil, go careful, because I don't think that's water. Now, I'm not going to go into any detail.
No, he'd seen a few
but I'm just going to call it black waste. I think it was black waste. I thought, that's very odd. On a nice sunny day, we're not at a low level. This is a bit strange. Anyway, we continued down to the marina and thought we'd find a place for a little drink.
Yes.
So we went to this bar. We're walking up to it. We could see that the front of it there was a bar across. I thought, this is going to be a little bit kind of exclusive.
Yes,
suits us.
It's a nice bar.
So we waited, and we could see people in there having drinks. Waited for the girl to come over and said, una mesa para 4 personas, por favor, which to any of the uninitiated is a table for 4, please. Yeah, my Spanish isn't doing too well. She said, we're closed. Yeah, in English. In English, we're closed. I went, okay, private party. And she said, no, there's no power. And I said, I think I know why that is.
Yes, I think I know why.
Yeah, I know. Just up here, about 100 yards up here, there's all water gushing. I'm wondering whether that water's affected the power supply. And she said something ridiculous.
She did.
What'd she say?
She said the whole of Spain is without power, and Portugal. Or did she know Portugal? Or was that the lady?
No, she said the whole of Spain and Portugal is without power.
I absolutely just didn't believe her. I just thought,
crazy
but I
thing
noticed
to say.
She had like goosebumps on her arms, and she was clearly a bit distressed about it.
She was.
Or a bit, just a bit sort of scared.
She was, anxious. So while we were I was kind of going, no, what do you mean? Her English, you know, she's trying, but... Yeah. And then a woman behind her who was English said, it's all across the news around the world that all of the power is out in Spain and Portugal. So...
That made us feel a bit weird.
a little bit. Didn't it? A little bit odd. So we stepped away from there. Here's the first fun bit of this whole situation, and that is, many of you may know that I spent my career working in disaster recovery and resilience. And our friends that came to visit us, Claire, used to work with me in disaster recovery and resilience.
So me and Derek thought, well, we're in great hands here, knowing you two.
Yeah, they kind of took a step back. Me and Claire then started to conflab on this, and we both decided what would be the best thing to do is get out of this major city and get back to our house in Spain, which is in the countryside a little bit. So we headed back to the car park. Next thing, can we get out of the car park? So we sent Sarah and Derek off to see whether we could exit.
Yeah.
Found that we could.
We didn't know whether I had to pay or not because of the car machine was down and the barriers, you know, we didn't know if we'd get out.
But we did.
We did.
And what we got out into was bedlam. So basically all traffic lights in Alicante were out, and although everybody was very respectful and letting each other in and stuff like that, it felt a bit like a disaster movie.
Yeah, I mean, the police were controlling the traffic and letting people cross. And we actually did see that as we were walking back down from the castle. But we've been to Alicante before, and it's not unusual to have the police sort of just controlling the traffic. So, again, didn't think anything of that. Yeah,
now, as I started this drive, you had a bit of forethought and you sent a message.
Well, because of that lady saying it's international news, I just thought, I don't want my mum sitting there or my sister and, you know, worrying about, are we okay? So I just, at that point I had 5G, so I just did a real quick message and it went through to just say, if you've seen any news, we're fine, and left it like that.
And that was the last message because all 5G networks went down.
As we were driving home,
networks went down. We lost everything. Yeah. And the next problem was we were driving out of Alicante, and it took us about an hour to drive to our house here. And I drove slowly because Claire and Derek were leaving the following day. They were flying out of Alicante Airport the following day. I'm looking at my fuel gauge and I can see I've got enough fuel to get back to our house. I've probably got enough fuel to get them to the airport, but I don't think I've got enough fuel to get us from the airport back to our place in Spain or anything else. So this started feeling a little bit nerve-wracking. And as we came into our little town, we could see that there was one bar open and people sat outside with bottles and cans. So clearly everything was down and they probably just done a cash deal to get a drink.
But the main thing is they were getting their beer.
Yeah, so we got to our house and first thing we did is check the power. Everything was off. Working in resilience and disaster recovery, the one thing that Sarah and I have got, you wouldn't be surprised to know, is when we bought this house, we bought a solar panel and we've got a backup battery of 2,000 kilowatt battery that we use. But because Claire and Derek were here, we'd unplugged it because we didn't want them getting involved in our whole kind of resilience setup that we had here.
It would have been in their bedroom, so.
Yeah, so the battery was low. And
normally in this weather it's 100%.
Yeah, but also batteries were low on our phones as well.
Were,
and obviously there was no internet. So we were totally cut off. This was a bit troubling. We didn't quite know what to do. And it might be at this point, you might be thinking, well, I've been in power outages before.
We used to have loads of kids. I can remember blackouts during the winter, no electricity and the candles on.
That's it. And I've worked in South Africa, and in South Africa they do load shedding where the power goes off for a period of time. But all of those you're able to contextualise it. You can say, oh, the local substation's down, and you can see the electric company out there working on it. But this, just put yourself in our position for a moment. We've been put in a position where we've been told all power is out in Spain and Portugal. We're without information. There's no phone networks. There's no Wi-Fi. There's nothing. and we're sat in the house, and so next thing I'm thinking is, we're in a hot country.
Yep.
It's about, I think it's about 25 degrees at that point in the day. We got a fridge, freezer. What do we do? So, again, Sarah and Derek left it to Claire and I. We're the experts in a time like this, and we decided we're going to keep the fridge and freezer closed because that way no warm air gets in and can start defrosting things. But we did think there are critical things we need.
There's critical things in that fridge.
There's beer,
wine, tonic water for
and
Jim.
Tonic water.
Yeah.
So
and
what we did,
there's ice, but we did make a decision on the ice.
We didn't want to get anywhere near the ice closet in there. So what we did is Claire urgently opened the fridge. I urgently got as many beers, tonics, and wines out. You'd be proud. You would be proud of just how serious we took this kind of situation.
That was very serious.
We did well.
Very
Sarah.
serious
We did well. So we got the key stuff. We sat down in the lounge and discussed what we should do next. Because I've still got this fear at this point about fuel in the car, I said there's a town which was about 10 miles away from where we are, where there's about 4 petrol stations all really close to each other. So I said, maybe what I should do is go there. There might still be a petrol station that's got generator power. Mm-hmm. And you all three said, go.
Yeah, we thought those sort of petrol stations must have some sort of backup because if the power goes, all the pumps would go and the payment would go. But we thought we've got to have some sort of backup.
Off I went. And it's at this point that I should probably tell you, Claire and Derek, when they think entertainment, they think, I can't say this word, apocalyptic
You made
movies.
me not be able to say it.
Apocalyptic movies.
Zombie movies.
Zombie movies, disaster movies. And as I left, I think Claire said to you,
Claire said,
we shouldn't have let him go.
Yeah, she said, I'm sure he'll be all right if he hasn't got a phone. And Claire said, maybe we shouldn't let him go on his own. You see it in the movies that he needs the second person to go.
2 of you.
So I'm sitting there thinking, we shouldn't let him go. He can't get in touch with us. Or
I went to this town. 3 of the petrol stations were totally out. The 4th one, well, actually, I'll tell you what happened next because I had the forethought to pick up my phone and tell you what happened next. And that was this. So I've just gone to a supermarket, this one here called Consume. It's just about every supermarket I've tried in the area is closed. I've tried to get fuel in the car. There was one place, long line. The issue is, got to get friends back to the airport tomorrow, if the airport's working, that is. But in here, what I've done, I used to work in resilience. What I've done is I've got a couple of bottles of water. I've got some baguettes here, and I've got some ham, and I've got some cheese. Now, I know this video doesn't look that great because I'm doing it on my phone, and I'm not doing it for long on my phone simply because I don't know where I'm going to get the power to charge the phone again. So it's a bit of a challenge. Hopefully this isn't going to be a long-term challenge, but it does feel like, a bit of a crisis at the moment. But hopefully everything will get back to normal. But at least it means we can feed our friends. We've got bread, we got ham, we got cheese, we got butter in the fridge, slowly getting warm back at the house. Problem with something like this is Spain's pretty hot, you know what I mean? At the moment, looking here, it's 25 degrees. So, it's a little bit challenging. But no one's panicking in Consume, which I'm very pleased to see. So I did well there.
You did do very well.
I think the general consensus among you 3 was, of all things I could have got, bread ham, cheese, and water was probably...
Water was the main thing, because we weren't sure whether the water was
sanitisation stations would be shut down. We didn't really know.
But you did get 5 baguettes.
Well, it was a pack of 5.
Pack of 5, which did leave us with a bit of a dilemma.
No, it didn't. Because Derek, have a look at the photographs of Derek, right? He eats... He'll have 2 or 3 meals at a time. So I knew that he would have 2 baguettes.
Yeah, but I was thinking, do we need to save that in case we needed it the next day for resilience?
Derek's need is greater than the rest of us. Yes. So Derek polished that off too sweet. That wasn't an issue. And the interesting thing is, being out and about, talking to people, lack of information can quickly turn into disinformation. Yes. So something I heard from someone was, not only is Spain and Portugal out, but also the whole of France is out and Poland. Now, I took that with a pinch of salt because no one knows any. You know, we didn't know a thing. We had to move on to the next stage of what is it that we do. And being British, we thought the best thing we could do with our time is go onto our roof terrace and play charades. And we had a great game of charades. And this was the wonderful thing about not having the distractions. We couldn't use our phones for two reasons.
Couldn't put music on.
Yeah, but one, we didn't have enough power in our phones to use them. Mm-hmm. Two, couldn't do anything with them because there's no connection to anything. There's no Wi-Fi. And the whole area was just silent. You know, it was just us on the roof playing charades. And then Derek suggested a fun game as well. And that is to ask each other challenging, searching questions. And this is it. You have these conversations.
Start talking to each other.
Yeah, so,
not that we don't talk, you know.
No, but you have kind of
you start having different conversations, and it's not around music because we're, you know, that sort of thing.
That's right. But so Derek asked, here's a question. If you won £5 million, who would you help first? What a refreshing thing to hear. Most people, I think, would think, if you won £5 million, what's the first thing you'd do with it?
Yeah, what
but you wanted to know who you'd help first, which was, you learn a lot about people in situations like that. And then we were there for hours. And no, again, we've got no connection to the outside world. Nope. We don't know if we're going to be out for hours, days.
The way we were getting through the beer and the drink, though, was getting a bit troubling if we were.
Yeah, we're probably not ideal in a crisis situation.
Because we couldn't refresh any of it because...
We can go to the fridge.
It wasn't point... Yeah, because I said, stick some more in, but as you rightly said, you're putting warm stuff in.
Incidentally, one thing I did do was I did connect our battery back up to the solar power, so we were starting to get solar coming in. Yeah. But we had no idea...
So we knew we could charge the phones up at least.
But we didn't know how long we were going to be out for. We didn't know whether we'd get no information for days. Actually, Derek said maybe there'll be a car with a tannoy going around giving us information. And
that sometimes happens. The police go around doing stuff. But...
So hours and hours passed. And then we were back. Right, it's 5 to 7 in the evening. So that's 6 hours.
6 hours.
But the thing is, we didn't know when it was going to come back on. Fun thing is, this is where our house is in Spain. Just listen for a moment. Just silent. It's a silent area. So we were sat on the roof. Tell you about that in a minute. We were sat on the roof, what we were doing there with our friends, which was all good fun. But we were doing stuff. And then we started to hear, whoa.
Cheers. But first of all, some house alarms.
Some house alarms going. And then some whooping. And I know 6 hours, it could be longer, but it was more a case of we didn't know what's going on. We still don't know why.
No.
But we didn't know what was going on, and we didn't know how long it was going to be, and it was a bit foreboding, wasn't it?
It was.
How did you feel about it?
Yeah, well, it was just a bit scary because of the volume of it all, I think, more than anything.
Well, the scale.
The scale, sorry, yeah. It's just that little, you can't help wondering what's all that about, really. I've never known whole countries go out.
So as it is, we got a baguette each. We're not going out for dinner.
We're very excited.
We're not going out for dinner.
No.
Because probably all the restaurants won't be able to open.
Cheese and Serrano ham baguettes.
Yeah, so let's get back to the video.
At least we can have a cold glass of wine. So
this felt a relief. It was a massive relief, but
we didn't know how long it was going to last. Is it just a blip that's come back up
because
again?
We still got no information. We haven't got our phones. There's no Wi-Fi.
We didn't know whether people at home were trying to contact us still.
We tried sending messages. They were just hanging there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the following morning that actually we got any kind of cell service back. So we went the whole night and into the following morning before we found anything out. So we did learn some valuable lessons along the way, though, didn't we?
Yeah. I really took it as a positive lesson, as far as it's quite nice to suddenly be without any technology, any power. So you have to have those, as friends and humans, talk to each other. And I think we all are guilty of, looking at your phone for things. And I took that as value. And also the neighbourhood, it was refreshing, when the power did come back on, everyone shouting over, making sure we were aware. And,
exactly.
it felt straight away like a community. And as you said about the supermarket, no one was panic buying.
No, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
There were quite a few people in the supermarket, but if I remember back to when we had the whole COVID situation and people buying stacks of toilet rolls, people simply went in there and could see the shelves were empty. So when I got those baguettes, there was hardly any bread left. But I could have taken, and there were other people taking a thing.
That's nice.
And going off, which was really good. And the other thing was stay calm. Panicking doesn't help anyone. There's this maxim I live by, which is in a situation, any kind of situation, if you're not in a position to affect a more positive outcome, then get out of the way. So we're not going to be able to bring the power back in Spain and Portugal. So get out of the way. We got out of Alicante, we came back to our house, and we sat tight, and we were with friends. You know, I felt a bit guilty at one point because our friends had had a fantastic vacation time with us. They'd had a perfect time, and it felt a bit off to end their whole vacation with the apocalypse. You know, have you ever had a vacation and you think, I
thought we were going to have to start eating each other after a while.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Derek would be the most hungry. We were talking about that.
We were talking about that.
It was like, who goes first? You go.
Yeah, well, they were telling us about a movie where people started eating each other. And then Derek said, he started to tell us the best way to dispose of a body.
Yes.
And, so maybe in a crisis, just go carefully
find out more about people.
Yeah.
So that was another lesson learned.
And also be adaptable. So it would have been easier, I guess, for us to keep checking our phones, but you do that and using the battery. Get your, just do the right thing for the right people. So for us, it wasn't a crisis. For many people in Spain and Portugal, it has been a crisis.
Yeah,
there have been deaths. People have lost their life, and there are areas where they're still not back to normal. So we're making light of it a little bit here.
Yeah.
But we just want to tell you our own personal story.
And it did worry me and we still don't know, do we, what actually happened?
Yeah, we still have no definitive answer.
You can't help these days just assuming, the worst as far as cyber, and we still don't know. Yeah. But it was unsettling for a little bit, just when you know the scale of it. It was a bit unsettling. So we are making a bit of a light of it now.
Yeah, because it's in the past.
Yeah.
So, our dream is world travel, and hopefully in the next video we'll be talking more about that. Hopefully we'll have some interesting news to share with you about our motorhome. There's a lot to share about that motorhome, to be honest. So make sure, if you haven't subscribed, do that now. And we will see you in the next video. Our dream is world travel.
What's yours?
See you next time.
Bye.